Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome, my friends. It is the final day of the first month of January 2012. It is Tuesday. This is another edition of Infowars Nightly News. We've got investigative journalist Wayne Madsen joining us to talk about the latest attacks on Occupy Wall Street and violations of the First Amendment. Regardless of what you think of Occupy Wall Street, their First Amendment rights are beginning to be violated in a Homeland Security coordinated effort. Since when is the Homeland Security set state policy or city or county policy? Why are they involved? Just incredible federalization. He'll get into Obama, the latest on his birth certificate, and the Iran situation. That is coming up. And then Darren McBreen is going to be in studio with us. And I've seen the special report he put together. Part of it is man on the street concerning aspartame. The rest of it is illustrating how they had doctors endorse cigarettes is good for you, and they're having doctors endorse who are paid off things like aspartame today. This is powerful information coming up at the end of the show tonight. Please stay with us for that and help get this report out to everyone you know, because a lot of lives are in the balance. They're putting aspartame in tens of thousands of products now. The public wakes up to something, they just proliferate it into almost every product where it's almost impossible to stay away from it. So that's coming up. But speaking of Iran, there are massive U.S. troop buildups being reported by a lot of different publications. I've got family that's been sent to Kuwait. There's major naval buildups in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Israel admits they may strike them. The United States and NATO have put giant sanctions on Iran. Iran is threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. This is moving rapidly towards open war. There's already covert war going on inside of Iran right now. The base is getting blown up, the generals being killed, the scientists being assassinated. All of this is unfolding and really starting to come to a head, and we'll continue to break all of that down as it unfolds. I talked to political scientist, PhD, and insider, former State Department highest security clearance individual, Dr. Jerome Corsi today, and he said the intel is the physical hot war is imminent. He was on the radio today. Shifting gears out of Iran to what's happening here in the United States, Senate bill will force radiation testing on TSA scanners because part of those TSA lies. For 3 years, they've said, we've tested them. And Congress, the supposed bosses, says, well, give us those tests. It turned out they were lying about those. And so now they're trying to pass a law saying they've got to test them and release the evidence. Well, it's already law that these type of scanners and other radiology equipment, other scanners, have to have a radiation officer that wears a badge. I know I worked as a dental assistant for a year, and there were people there that were there testing, and it's much lower than the radiation coming out of many of these systems. So they just violate that law as well, just like they violate the Fourth Amendment and the 10th Amendment. What are Fed goons doing in your town? Now at highway checkpoints, now saying they're going to be outside the airports searching you as you drive in. It's just this mission creep, this total takeover of society. But that's certainly good news. We need to get behind forcing that information out into the open. There's another article, something the TSA, by the way, goes after is I've talked to people and been on flights with folks being searched because they had 2 or 3 gold coins and a couple silver coins, and TSA almost took it. In some cases, they do take it. And Forbes asked the question, why are the Chinese buying gold in record quantities? Well, they're buying gold at record levels because they know their currency is being devalued, and the dollar that they own close to $2 trillion worth of is being devalued. The People's Bank of China, the central bank, has been hinting that it is purchasing. No asset is safe now, said the PBOC at the end of last month. The only choice to hedge risk is to hold hard currency, gold. He also said it was a smart strategy to buy on market dips, which I know I do, small amounts, Analysts naturally jumped on this comment as proof that China, the world's fifth largest holder of the metal, is in the market for more. Well, big universities like UT have bought $1 billion+ worth of it. And now, since they've announced QE3 and more money printing, gold and silver are going back up, obviously. If you look at a 12-year graph, it's going up. There's some dips on the way up, but it's like a staircase. It just goes up. Continuing here, an article by Tyler Durgan at Zero Hedge. Landmark case. Greek court writes off employed bank customer debt. In what could turn out to be a significant ruling for Greeks suffering from economic crisis, a court in Crete has become the first in the country to order the majority of the debt owned by banks by someone still in full employment be wiped out. And so that's a form of bankruptcy. Look, most of the debt, over 90% that the Greeks supposedly owe, is their government signing on to the derivatives of J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and others. And the derivatives they sold the countries that's turned out to be rotten crap. They should all be going to jail. Instead, the head bankers are getting Greek islands and lands and taxpayer money for their fraud because they were smart and put their people in all the regulatory positions. Now, we've got another report here out of the Boston Phoenix. It's mass uniting and Occupy Boston march on GE with a simple message: pay your taxes, your bleeping taxes. And, of course, General Electric doesn't even pay state taxes. They don't pay federal taxes. They don't pay any taxes. Some of their employees pay paltry taxes. And, of course, most of these people are exempt from taxes because they write the rules. And the very same elitist, like Warren Buffett, he says, oh, my secretary only makes $1 million a year or whatever. She's only got 2 houses and everything. She pays more taxes, well, a higher tax percentage than I do. Well, that's because you helped write the tax laws exempting yourself. And the tax laws he's bringing forward raise taxes on the middle class, which then he'll steal through banker bailouts to himself. He's a cold-blooded old bastard, okay? Not the nice little cupcake he tells you, or the foundations he's got, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that he owns part of, that finances every major news channel telling you that he basically is the father of Jesus, that everything good flows out of him. I mean, it is disgusting. And if you read the fine print, he's paying for that. He's the guy that shut down the big pipeline. In fact, guys, pull up the Bloomberg article. Just type in Buffett profits from pipeline shutdown, Bloomberg. His railroad will now ship most of that oil to the West Coast onto tanker ships to China. China gets 3 coal power plants a week. We get ours shut down. We get none. China gets most of the Alaskan oil. We get 20% of it, our own oil. It's all a big global monopoly, a bunch of combines screwing everybody. So that's the big secret. That's why the ultra-rich have tried to co-opt Occupy Wall Street with the message of raise taxes and all the rest of this. Okay, Dew was able to pull up one from a few weeks ago, Washington Times. Buffett would profit from Keystone cancellation. Click the news link. Type in Buffett benefits from pipeline cancellation, and it's from Monday. And there it is. It says that they haven't even been able to ship out the oil. There's so much of it, and that the trains, are getting all the contracts, and we're upset, the train companies, and that he's the main owner there. I mean, this is such an illustration of, I just want to pay more taxes. That's why to buy one of the shares in my companies, thousands of dollars. That's why I always get the insider knowledge for anybody else. That's why I get all these banker bailouts and government taxpayer money. I'm Warren Buffett. I care so much about you. I'm such a humanitarian. Now, please take a vaccine. Please, I want to put fluoride in your water because I write books and make statements about too many people, but I want you to take this so you live longer. Now, never mind, that doesn't make sense. Never mind, ultra-rich meet in secret to discuss population. Guys, type that in. The Times of London, Sunday Times took it down, but we had it saved. Global Research saved it too. Type in ultra-rich or world's elite meet to discuss population. Solutions to overpopulation. We're meeting in secret. And, of course, they got it pulled out of the news because one of the reporters talked. We need to get rid of everybody with these vaccines. Ted Turner, who says, kill everybody, humans are scum. He's there, but then he comes out and says, I love you. Take a shot. I want to take good care of you. I care so much about you. Bill Gates has given interviews about there's too many people. My dad headed up Planned Parenthood. We need to force vaccines to reduce population. People say, what does that mean? He goes, you'll see. And he's funding all this with Ted Turner and all these other eugenicists like the globalist Warren Buffett. But then he's financing London Guardian, ABC News, everything Aaron covered last night, where around saying we've got to come in and reduce world population. I mean, it is so scary. In fact, here's a big detailed article going through all the proof of this. Bill Gates, media partners praise vaccine GMO programs led by Microsoft founder. He's the main guy funding the GMO that's sterilizing all the animals they feed it to and causing cancer. He's the guy funding the vaccine pushes. He's the guy with Monsanto coming in with these federally and state-funded public schools, charter schools, and giving them maybe 5% of the funding and controlling their curriculum. He's our little angel cake. So a key article by Aaron Dykes. Continuing with a little piece of lighter news, they're reporting the Millennium Falcon has been discovered. It's either the Millennium Falcon or a gateway to hell. Shipwreck hunters find mysterious object at the bottom of the Baltic. And folks, that looks just like the Millennium Falcon. That is beyond bizarre. They're always finding crazy stuff in the Baltic. That is weird. So we'll certainly, we're not saying it's the Millennium Falcon. The New York Times will quote us. It's like John Ronson, who had the movie Ministeric Goats with George Clooney and all the rest of it. He also wrote Them, which was optioned years ago by Jack Black, I guess, to make fun of myself. And they never made the movie. I wish they'd make it. I'd love to see myself being made fun of at the Bohemian Grove. But they did make Teddy Bear's Picnic making fun of us, though. But that's a side issue. The point is that I was joking with him on the phone driving out to Northern California, stuck in all this fog. And I said, man, it's like Transylvania. It's like werewolves are going to jump out or something. There's like 5-foot thick fog on the ground and nothing above it. I used to watch werewolf movies, those old 1940s, and it's like this fog on the ground like that. I thought that wasn't real, but I'm expecting to see a werewolf pop out. And he goes, oh, really? And I said, no, that's a joke. Well, in his book, I actually call up and I'm afraid of werewolves, and they're all going to get me. So I'm sure there'll be another book that I believe the Millennium Falcon's actually been found on the bottom of the ocean. I just need to point it out. I mean, the New York Times said when I was at Bilderberg, and was on record, Bilderberg was there in 2008, that I was insane running around in the woods of Virginia imagining a Leach meeting. So, I mean, who knows? That's just how they try to deceive their viewers and listeners and readers. Continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back with the one, the only Wayne Madsen, and then that big report with Darren McBreen, which is bombshell, with the news saying doctors recommend you smoke cigarettes. The Flintstones, kids, it's good for you, back in the 50s, and now we have the Flintstones promoting aspartame for kids. We'll be right back. It's Infowars Nightly News.
America is in trouble.
Washington is a disgrace.
Government has become too big. It's overtaxing, overspending.
We need to change direction.
We really need change.
We can't afford to make the same mistakes we've made in the past.
Mitt Romney's reputation as a flip-flopper.
He went the other way when he got paid to go the other way.
There is need for economic stimulus.
It's about serial hypocrisy.
This election is about trust.
There's been one true, consistent candidate, and that's Dr. Ron Paul.
Ron Paul has been so consistent from the very beginning.
He seems like a more honest candidate.
He tells the truth about what he believes, whether you like it or not.
He's never once voted for a tax increase, never once voted for an unbalanced budget.
Ron Paul's plan is bold, cuts 5 departments. It's what we need.
When he says he's going to cut $1 trillion in the first year, I believe it.
If you don't like how things are going and you're tired of politicians, he's something different.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul
is the one we've been looking for.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
And we are back, Infowars Nightly News on this Tuesday edition. Coming up after our next interview with investigative journalist Wayne Madsen, with a lot of breaking news and analysis, we're going to have our own Darren McBreen in studio. We're going to premiere a report here he did on the street in Austin concerning aspartame and then have Darren in studio with us to expand on it and look back on the history of poisonous substances being sold to the public as nutritious like cigarettes. I'd walk a mile for a Camel. Having a sore throat, smoke an extra pack. It's good for lung health, when they knew full well that it was deadly. Kind of like J. Edgar Hoover in the 50s saying no such thing as organized crime. Nowadays, we know that's ridiculous. But this is the type of hidden in plain view stuff they do with fluoride, vaccines, all of it. I've got a host of issues to talk about with Wayne Madsen, but he joins us via telephone. He's down there at one of the Washington, D.C. parks where they were saying they were going to taser and tear gas people like Oakland, but that hasn't happened so far. But Darrell Issa is saying get them out of there. Regardless of what you think about the Occupy movement, they have a right to demonstrate. And if a precedent gets set to sweep them off the streets, your rights are gone as well. Wayne, thanks for joining us. Tell us what you're seeing down there.
Well, we had a deadline issued for the two Occupy camps yesterday. It was at 12 noon. The one here on Freedom Plaza, which is about 2 blocks from the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, between the White House, close to the White House into Capitol Hill. And then there was another park, McPherson Square, which is a few blocks north of here. Both were issued notices by the National Park Service that they were in violation of the prohibitions against camping. However, they've been camping here for 4 months. They've been cooking meals for 4 months. There's an issue, though, with the chairman of the House Committee on Government Oversight and Reform, Darrell Issa from California, who is really trying to get these people moved out of the parks. He's charging that in one case they did some minor damage. And we also have something interesting with President Obama. It's now very clear that there has been an attempt to try to co-opt Occupy by the White House, and there's a lot of resistance to that by the Occupy people. So it's almost like a kabuki theater here. You've got the Occupy people here in the encampments. You've got Darrell Issa trying to get them thrown out, and you've got President Obama and the administration saying, well, maybe they can stay, but if they just sort of support the administration's policies, that'll be fine.
Well, so, sure, this is the classic duplicity of Obama saying he didn't want the arrest of Americans indefinitely or the killing of Americans indefinitely in NDAA, and then it turned out he was the one that demanded it. Then he said he would veto it, then he signed it on New Year's. I mean, it's always part of this manipulation, but they've certainly tried to co-opt it, and when they haven't had success, as you know, in the last month it's come out, Homeland Security coordinated in more than 30 locations violent attacks on Occupy through Homeland Security. I mean, that's not only a violation of the First Amendment, it's a violation of the 10th Amendment. What are the feds doing in cities all over the U.S., from L.A. to Denver to Manhattan, coordinating shutdowns of people camping out?
Well, it's funny. Janet Napolitano, the Homeland Security Secretary, spoke at the National Press Club yesterday, just at the same time that the deadline came in with the National Park Service on one of the encampments, which is literally a few footsteps away from the National Press Club downtown here at Freedom Plaza. Now, no one bothered to ask, or if they asked it, they screened that question out. No one bothered to ask Napolitano about that coordination between Homeland Security and the various mayors, like Gene Kwan in Oakland and Bloomberg up in New York. So here again, we have the corporate media basically not asking the tough questions when they get somebody before them at a luncheon. Today, a federal judge, Judge Boasberg, U.S. federal judge here for the District of Columbia, U.S. District Court for the district, issued an order saying, look, if you decide to get rid of these people, you're going to have to give them advance notice, and you're going to, and they have the right to come before the court.
Wayne, going back to you there in the park, I'm going to ask the guys to pull this up here in a moment. Before we went on air, you were mentioning to me, yeah, Darrell Issa, what a hypocrite. You know, he's been caught stealing cars. And I knew that he's put on this whole act that he's going after the president for Fast and Furious. But then a few months ago, whenever the attorney general said, you know, Bush was doing similar things to this, which we know, goes back to even Iran-Contra, and then even before that to ship guns into countries and they ship drugs back in. And suddenly Issa began to back off and said, okay, well, now it's up to the president. And they should go after him for fast and furious. But I looked it up right before we went on air, and there was news articles about repeatedly him being caught or investigated or indicted stealing cars from the military, from others. In 1971, an Army sergeant claimed Issa stole a Dodge sedan from an Army post near Pittsburgh. The sergeant said he recovered the car after confronting and threatening him. Issa denied that in 72, but this is happening over and over again. Issa and his brother allegedly stole a Maserati sports car from a car dealership in Cleveland. He and his brother were indicted for car theft, but the case was dropped. So this just keeps happening. This is not people making this up, obviously. If somebody says once you were caught doing something bad and you get away with it, fine, but 3 times. The same year, Issa was convicted in Michigan for possession of an unregistered gun. He received 3 months prohibition. I don't think that's bad. On 79, Issa and his brother allegedly faked the theft of Issa's Mercedes-Benz sedan. They were charged with grand theft auto, but the case was dropped by prosecutors for lack of evidence. There's no way, and it just goes on and on. There's no way this just keeps popping up over and over again, Wayne.
Right, and the most hypocritical thing about Issa is he made all of his fortune in California by selling car alarms. So I guess, you can't make this kind of stuff up because I guess he figured that's a good way to keep his business going if he was stealing cars. People
remember the case in the northern end of Manhattan. It must have been 15 years ago, where the guy had signs up all over this neighborhood about get your window dings fixed the cheapest. And it turned out he had a crew of guys every night out with ball peen hammers breaking windshields. That's problem, reaction, solution right there.
Right. Well, we had a case here in Prince George's County about 25 years ago where they found the fire department that was facing budget cuts started setting fires. So, these people do exist, of course, but I think this goes to show, though, that people like this, they're on very thin ice when they're, we know that he has a lot of investments with Goldman Sachs, so obviously he doesn't want these people here protesting about the abuses on Wall Street, since he's obviously has partaken.
One more point I want to raise with you, Wayne, before we get into geopolitical issues, the latest on Obama's birth certificate, and some other things you're investigating. I wanted to, in fact, guys, you can pull this up on Wikipedia or just Encyclopedia Britannica. Bonus strike marchers, years after World War I, they'd been promised in a contract that they'd be, paid money when they returned home, a certain stipend. Many of them were wounded and weren't getting treatment, so they were promised, this bonus. And they camped out for months there in D.C., near where you are, and it was the young Patton and the young MacArthur who rode them down. And again, of course, that was many years after World War I. It was 1932. They killed a bunch of them. And so this is an American thing to camp out and to really bring attention to something. And for the media to act like it's something that dirty commie hippies do, regardless of who really makes up Occupy Wall Street. Everyone should be supporting peaceful demonstration, especially camping out.
Right, and that's the issue, that even though camping is not permitted, even the head of the National Park Service stated, look, the tents can remain. They made them take out a lot of the sleeping bags.
Well, your petty little rules don't circumvent when it's public property or a public commons, people's First Amendment. That's how they say you have to get a permit to march. Well, yeah, if you're blocking the major road, you do, but not if you're on the sidewalk. And the courts have found that as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, right. What the head of the National Park Service is arguing, because he's being attacked by Issa, is that, look, the tents can remain because they're part of the protest symbology.
Exactly.
But, the sleeping bags, and they've been pretty good about removing. Now, not everybody's taken their sleeping bags. I understand there's probably a few homeless people here at least in McPherson Square.
Well, we've learned nationwide and confirmed, including Austin, they release the criminals and the mentally ill out of the facilities and the homeless. And in Austin, they tell them, we will arrest you anywhere but at Occupy. And they send them there to vomit and defecate everywhere when they're drunk to then make the Occupy look bad.
Yeah, I think the same thing happened in New York. They let some people out of Bellevue, which is the mental institution in Manhattan, and then bussed them down or drove them down to the Occupy at Zuccotti Park. But yesterday there was a lot of apprehension here as it got close to noon because that was the deadline, and every time there was a siren went by, people said, "Oh, here it comes," because the thought was that the park police and the other security people were staging the move here from some other location. There was also very apparent that there was a lot of police, well, not a lot, but there were some police informants amongst the people here yesterday, not as many as the media. There was a lot of media here yesterday, and at both encampments they said it was the presence of the media, of course, that would have caused the authorities not to make a move then. So there was a belief they would have come in like at 1 or 2 in the morning when the media's not here, when Fox News goes home and CNN goes home. But that didn't happen because there was this restraining order issued by this federal judge today.
Well, that's good that the Constitution's still in place, at least in some areas of the United States. Expanding on that, I know you spent a lot of time looking at the Chicago machine that controls Obama, namely his man in Chicago, or it's really Rahm's man in the White House. But we're going to put an article on screen for viewers. Rahm Emanuel has come out, and I want your take on this, and said you got to get insurance, you got to get all these permits to protest anywhere, to have a protest sign, a button on your shirt. I mean, this is obviously unconstitutional, but it's there in the mob city of Chicago. And they're now trying to expand that and say media, you're going to have to get authorization to be there as well. Right. So a full-out attack on the First Amendment. And our own Rob Dew is having to sue the Pittsburgh police right now from the last G20 meeting. This is G20 and NATO at one time to meet in Chicago. He was up on a hillside videotaping the police attacking demonstrators and non-demonstrators at the university in a park at night. And they marched up the hill and arrested him as well. So, I mean, I saw that big university report out that the U.S. is now, 47th when it comes to press freedoms. That's what Reporters Without Borders said. Right. And I think that we should be dropping, I think at least 6 journalists were arrested in Oakland. People with credentials from the San Francisco PD, the Oakland cops said they're not good here. But they even arrested at least one journalist with Oakland police credentials in Oakland. And here we have Mayor Gene Kwan out there who's saying, look, these people are nothing more than domestic terrorists. And it was quite clear that there was a lot of provocateurs present in Oakland. There's a lot of questions as to who burned that American flag. Many of the protesters says don't burn it, but there were some people intent on doing it. We've seen that time in and time out where the police send their goons in there to create some sort of violence, and then the rest of the police. Well, Wayne, they've been caught in Denver. They've been caught in 2008, as you know, Denver Post. And we thought it was cops at the time starting fights, but and then sneaking off with masks on, but it later came out it was. They were caught in Ottawa, Canada, as you know, in 2007, staging attacks on people and blaming it on the general protesters. They were caught in 1999 at the WTO meeting in Seattle. They get caught all the time, but here in Austin, we've had them insert cops dressed like anarchists to start fights. I've had them send Klan people to my rallies before, and I confronted them and followed them to their unmarked police cars and told them I was going to expose them so the news media didn't pick up on it. I mean, it's just like what they've done with Ron Paul. They got caught saying, let's dress up like Klan members to go out and make him look bad. Absolutely. And I have to assume that they were present here yesterday because we had a conversation with one individual who just did not seem to belong here, and you can usually spot them. They try to look like they're one of the occupiers, but they sort of stand out like a sore thumb. Well, shifting gears out of that area, let's quickly, because I know you've got to go here in a moment. We've got a reporter coming in as well. Let's get into the latest on Iran from your intel, and then this deadlock convention, talk of Jeb Bush coming in as the savior on the white horse, and the creepiness of Obama hosting George H. Bush and Jeb at the White House in a closed-door meeting. What's your intel there from Capitol Hill on that?
Well, it's we still hear the sabers being rattled about Iran. There's a report today, another one out of Israel, that Israel is intent on hitting them in May. Of course, that's in the middle of the campaign season here, so you never can tell what is real and what is not real from especially the Israelis, because they try to pump this stuff up as a propaganda thing, probably to scare the Iranians. Now, I thought it was also interesting that this administration apparently doesn't speak with one voice on a lot of these Middle East issues, with Vice President Biden saying he cautioned against the raid on that supposedly killed bin Laden in Pakistan. He said, look, Mr. President, we don't know who's in that particular building. So it seems like Biden, of all people, is now exercising some sort of adult responsibilities in this administration by saying he's come out and admitted. He said, I said, look, Panetta, who was at the CIA then, he's saying, look, bin Laden's there, but he said, as far as I'm concerned, I think we need more proof.
Well, now we know it was a CIA doctor that led them there. Then the helicopter blows up when it's lifting off. Then the rest of the SEALs that know about it and Seam Till 6 get sardined into a helicopter and it blows up. They bury him at sea. You can see all the scripting of this. This is as phony as a $3 bill.
Right, and I think the more that Joe Biden keeps talking, because we know that he has this tendency to speak when he's not supposed to say anything. I think the more this happens, we may not see Joe Biden on the ticket come November.
What's this we hear about Hillary could be on the ticket or maybe even run against Obama?
Right, and she of course has said that she will not serve a second, the Secretary of State in a second term. She may be floating that as a trial balloon as well.
Now, let's shift into the issue of Jeb Bush and his little visit to meet with Obama.
Yeah, that was this past Friday. There was a very interesting meeting. Now, Obama was doing a fundraiser at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, which is about a 5.5-star hotel here in Washington. He leaves the fundraiser, runs up to the White House to have a chat with old man Bush, H.W., and Jeb in the Oval Office. That's the second time that these two individuals have shown up sort of unexpected for what was called a courtesy call. There was another meeting like that in November of 2009. But as anyone who's covered Washington politics and the White House for a number of years knows, you just can't call, even if you're the ex-president, you just can't call up because they've got a tight schedule, the president. And normally when you see ex-presidents go into the Oval Office, it's usually a state funeral for some past president who died or some major function. But here's twice now where old man Bush and Jeb have just called up and they're, come on over. We'll drop everything we're doing.
And it's always these two. It's not, he's not there with George Walker Bush, with George H.W. 41. It's not Marvin. It's not any of the others. It's always these two.
Absolutely. And the word that's bubbling under the surface here, and of course we don't know what's going to happen with the primary today in Florida. We were told that Romney was surging in South Carolina, and of course Gingrich beat him handily. But there's a lot of word here from different quarters that Gingrich is not dropping out. Certainly Ron Paul is not dropping out. Santorum hasn't given any indication he's dropping out. We may go to Tampa with no one having a majority of the delegates. Therefore, we could have a deadlock convention. Jeb could come in as the white knight in shining armor and pick up the gauntlet and take the nomination.
And we know the Republicans last year, well, I guess now it's a year and a half ago, it was late 2010, they changed the rules to make a broker convention more easy.
That's right. Florida's a winner-take-all, but all the states after this, caucuses and primaries, the delegates are awarded proportionately. We saw that up till now with New Hampshire and South Carolina. Apparently Romney picked up a couple of delegates in South Carolina because he won one of the congressional districts. So from after Florida, they're all awarded proportionately. And with Gingrich, Santorum, and Ron Paul staying in, we could see no candidate having a majority of the delegates, which would be perfect for a Jeb Bush. Remember, the convention is in Tampa, Florida, and we know how Jeb runs the show in Florida. He did it in 2000, certainly with the election there.
WayneMadsenReport.com is where folks can learn more of your great investigative work. In closing, Wayne, in other areas of politics, why do you think the Republican establishment is turning against Gingrich? I don't like Gingrich. He is a very nasty man. He is for carbon taxes. He is a flip-flopper. But I think the system's going against him because they know that, kind of like Nixon, he would try to be president, and they want a weak puppet like Obama or Romney. Of course, they're scared of Paul because he's a constitutionalist and against everything they stand for. But I think they're more and more going after Gingrich and exposing his record to destroy him with libertarians and conservatives. They can do the same thing with Mitt Romney. I mean, offshore Cayman accounts, carbon taxes, wrote Obamacare. But the Republican establishment's okay with that. They're turning against Gingrich. Do you agree with my summation? Can you add any, or do you disagree, or can you add any caveats to why the Republican establishment is going after Gingrich? Is it that Pelosi says she's got this dirt and they know what it is, that she says she can destroy him? Why are they going after Gingrich?
Well, Pelosi was supposedly had dirt on Obama and never used it. I don't know how much what she says we can believe, but I'll tell you what, one thing Gingrich did is he violated a cardinal sin when he bought that documentary, and I saw that documentary about Romney and how he would close factories and with Bain Capital moving in, selling all the, getting rid of the jobs and selling all the plant equipment. That was hard hitting, and that hurt Romney. But you know, when you understand that documentary was just showing the vulture and vampire capitalism practiced by people like Romney. Now, let's face it, of course, Gingrich also made handsome salary as a lobbyist for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but lobbying here in Washington is everybody does it. But what you don't have normally in this town is somebody like a Romney, who is a multi-billionaire who gets all these investments from shady people in Latin America to set up Bain Capital, and they just destroy, entire towns in the United States. And I think when Gingrich highlighted that, Gingrich was basically committing a very mortal sin against the Republican Party. Is we don't talk about how we make our money because we are Wall Street. We are the one percenters. So when Gingrich kind of attacked the one percenters, I think they said, look, this guy, we can't have him even anywhere close to the White House because he can't be trusted to carry out our agenda.
No, I agree with you. And that's the big secret to globalism is they use government to shut down their competition. They come in and destroy companies and sell them off. And they get tax incentives to move offshore. Notice none of these Republicans except Ron Paul will even point that out. That, I mean, look at the last head of Bain Capital is replacing Daley at the White House. I mean, it's all one disgusting crew.
Absolutely. And I think, as I said, Gingrich, by highlighting Bain Capital and how these people do business, I think the Republican hierarchy said, wait a minute. And who knows what was spoken about at the White House. But later that night, Old Man Bush, Jeb, and Obama were all at the Alfalfa Club dinner here in Washington. And apparently the Alfalfa Club, as kind of a joke, nominated Jeb Bush to be their candidate for president. Now, a joke aside, I think there was probably much more to that than meets the eye.
Well, we're going to find out soon. Wayne Madsen, thank you so much for the time.
Okay, good to be with you.
All right, great talking to him out there. All right, we're going to go to break and come back with our very own Darren McBreen, looking at something we can do something about, aspartame. It's not just in soft drinks. It's not just in bubble gum. It's not just in sweeteners. It's being added to everything. We'll be right back. It's Infowars Nightly News. Yeah, I'm signing these evil 1776 flags. Doesn't get any more out of control than that, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty un-American what we're doing here at Infowars.com. mean, not only are we promoting liberty, but we're selling 1776 flags. Now that is Al-Qaeda.
What's up with these sorry politicians? Lots of bark. When it's showtime, whimpering like little shih tzus. You want big cuts. Ron Paul's been screaming it for years. Budget crisis? No problem. Got $1 trillion year one. That's trillion with a T. Department of Education? Gone. Interior, Energy, HUD, Commerce? Gone. Later, bureaucrats. That's how Ron Paul rolls. Want to drain the swamp? Ron Paul. Do it.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
Now, in a moment, we're going to go to Darren McBreen dealing with aspartame, this military chemical weapon that's been in our food since 1981. But before we get to that, the guys were able to dig it up. And I've noticed that the Sunday Times of London that originally wrote the article pulled their story years after it was up. And also the ABC News. We're going to do a whole report on this in the next few days because we're going to dig up the old screenshots we've got. They changed their headline that they're trying to help the poor. But there's the PrisonPlanet.com article from a few years ago. Secretive rich cabal met to discuss population control. Now, the actual headline from the Sunday Times was, Rich Meet to Discuss Overpopulation in New York. And they're just pulling it. They let a reporter in, Oprah Winfrey, Ted Turner, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. They were all there. And previously, the ABC News article said all this, but they actually cut it out. Why? Because Bill Gates is a sponsor of ABC News and ABC Blog. And again, George Soros, all of them were there, obsessed with their philanthropy to make sure you take all these vaccines and shots. In fact, guys, did you find the Prison Planet version where we did actually save part of the Sunday Times? You know, we only put a blurb there, but we have the actual headline. Go back and type in that original headline that actually led you to our article. Go back to the Google search, the NSA search. We'll show people. Hit enter on that. Billionaire club in bid to curb overpopulation. That's it. And that's our forum. And then watch what happens when you link on it. It takes you to the Sunday Times. And now they've removed it. I actually went and registered trying to see this today. Gone. But again, they want you to register now. But thank God we were able to save it. So if you type in billionaire club in bid to curb overpopulation, we only put a blurb up to document it was there. Global Research actually has the whole thing. In fact, put in billionaire club in bid to curb overpopulation, and then put in globalresearch.ca after it. They actually have the whole thing. Again, we just show you our own research, you know, what we do here. It's all transparent. And you read it, and at the end they say, well, we don't want to say we're an alternative global government. We're just trying to help the global government with the overpopulation. And they want to help by getting you vaccines and GMO food. And then we've got Bill Gates on TED TV saying, we're going to give you shots so you don't have kids. And endorsing death panels, kill granny. We're going to put a whole report together showing you what these guys are up to. But they pay to have it called philanthropy. Yeah, there it is. Billionaire club in bid to curb overpopulation. Scroll down. And Times UK. Yeah, they've got, scroll down to the end of the article. And they've got the whole thing basically posted there. All right, you can go find that for yourself. I'm kind of digressing. I get obsessed with information, obviously. Let's look at some of the other medical news. New Jersey Assembly panel passes bill to add fluoride to public drinking water. This is after cities began to pass laws against lobbyists coming in and getting them to pay millions of dollars for toxic waste that's left over, not just fluoride, but hundreds of chemicals and heavy metals to be added to the water. So we've got that report. Florida, of course, last year passed a law to force everyone to fluoridate. And now they're talking about making people that have wells not be able to use the well water anymore because you've got to have the fluoride. It's you know, the government cares about you. These are really, really, really wonderful people for your teeth. Just like we have clips coming up with Darrell McBreen after Man on the Street where they say cigarettes, the doctor says, are good for you. And don't disagree with them. You know, big special industry to come in and tell you the doctor says Prozac, Ritalin, fluoride, cigarettes with hundreds of additives, fluoride, it's good for you. They love you. Don't be a conspiracy theorist. Don't question. But never fear, the same government that dug up dead whalers in the Arctic tundra to resurrect the Spanish flu that killed tens of millions and turned into H1N1 to scare you, why they've discovered deadly superbugs that are in the ocean and no doubt will make their way into our lives. Bacteria that can resist nearly all antibiotics have been found in Antarctic seawater. A quarter of the samples of the coli bacteria, the same folks that make the aspartame, carry genes that made an enzyme called ESBL, which can destroy penicillin and other antibiotics. So you know that'll make its way to your dinner table by these murdering eugenicists very, very soon. Here's another report. Scientists create bird flu superbug that could set off next global pandemic, and they've found mouse pox, airborne Ebola, all of this in the name of keeping you safe. No, it's the control freaks that are the actual danger to humanity. And yet another report, children's medicines coated with brain-damaging aluminum. You know Alzheimer's is off the chart. You know that it's connected for decades to aluminum. Of course, you know that neurological disorders are getting worse and worse. And they're now coming out and admitting in these major research that it shows kidney damage in mice, higher incidence of tumors, toxic to rodents, even in modest levels. And, of course, they recognize in 1990 it's tied to thyroid cancer. It's in many of the most popular dyes. It causes bladder and testicle tumors. Another gift from the globalist. And affects behavior and hypersensitivity reactions, while aluminum's an adjuvant. It accelerates and magnifies everything. And causes adrenal tumors in animals. Well, hell, why not have the deodorant with it? Why not have it in your kids' pills? I mean, come on. Don't be a conspiracy theorist. This is another gift from the government. In fact, I want to apologize right here. Yeah, obviously, this is a gift to your children. Trust these loving people that openly say they want to kill you. Don't be an extremist. Trust the FDA. Trust the EPA. You know, they raise levels of radiation and said it's safe. And then here's another one. Proof that the cancer industry doesn't want to cure, even if it's pharmacological. Even when they make it. They've got all these treatments that almost completely cure cancer. They've come out over decades, and they just shelve them because they want to suck all the money out of you with a can of Raid poison they charge you $10,000 for, calling it chemo, and get rid of your butt. It's part of their control freak murderous activity. DCA offers the cancer industry an opportunity to come up with a pharmacological cure that is much cheaper and safer than their current standard of care. If the cancer industry is ignoring this opportunity, instead DCA is a homeless orphan begging for research fund to avoid legal issues with off-label use of cancer. So basically, the establishment knows that we're starting to wake up to their medical tyranny with the sodium fluoride and the water and all the other toxic chemicals, the forced shots and the mercury and the cancer increasing, the GMOs, all run by eugenicists like Bill Gates, who openly says he wants to reduce population, but he's got a shot for you because you're an African. He cares so much about you. It's ridiculous. Now, one of the other chemical weapons that are used against the population worldwide is aspartame. It's now in tens of thousands of products because people have woken up to it in soft drinks and are demanding stevia and other alternatives. Well, now they've just deployed it into gums, candies, baked goods, pills, over-the-counter stuff. It is wild what this is doing. So our very own investigative reporter, Darren McBreen, went out on the streets of Austin, Texas to talk to locals and find out if they were aware of the admitted dangers coming from Monsanto that bought Searle. Searle couldn't get it approved in the 60s and 70s, but guess what? Good old Monsanto could get it approved under Ronald Reagan. And you know the rest of the story, but I wanted to get into more of the details here. Now, Darren, I mean, there's so much research on this, and since I asked you a few weeks ago to look into aspartame, you knew quite a bit about it, but you've done a crash course and learned a lot more. Indeed. Give us a basic breakdown before we get to this man on the street report.
Well, this might be the largest health hazard ever to hit the food industry. We've got numerous health officials, tons of independent studies have warned us of the very serious and documented side effects of aspartame. No big surprise, Monsanto Corporation's name is in the mix. We all know they're the makers of Agent Orange. They're the largest biotech company in the world. They created aspartame using genetically modified bacteria. And now it's manufactured by big pharma giant Pfizer, and they lobbied, and whose lobbyists and political connections basically got them approved by the FDA. And of course, this was back when they used to be G.D. Searle and Donald Rumsfeld was at the helm.
And so many of the additives, not just aspartame, you learn, are these drugs. And it's drug companies making them, and they feed a certain type of toxic waste. The Army developed this in like 65, to E. coli. The first genetically engineered bacteria they changed was E. coli, and it craps out. I hate to get detailed, but it is. You're eating a mutated bacteria's crap.
Yeah.
It's defecation, and it's highly toxic and highly addictive. I mean, this is amazing, Darren.
Well, this is what it comes down to. You've got a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company manufacturing artificial sweeteners that's consumed by millions of people. And, make no mistake about it, Big Pharma profits from sickness, not health. So it's easy to see the motivation to push the product. It makes perfect evil sense.
Well, I've seen this piece you put together. I played part of it on the radio, but we've got an addendum we're going to premiere here tonight. But and now I've seen this, and I noticed most of the folks in the Man on the Street, and again, you put everybody you talk to in there, they know aspartame's bad. They've heard about it. They even know about the rat studies. But they still trust their government and the EPA and the FDA.
Sadly, if it's got the FDA stamp of approval on there, they'll still consume it. They might not, take it every single day. They might be a little apprehensive about it, but that FDA stamp of approval means a lot.
Well, the EPA has come out, the sister agency of the FDA, as you know, since Fukushima and the radioactive levels went up, and they've raised some isotopes 100,000 times what they were previously saying was safe. And all over the world, they announced last week a unified upping of what they say is safe radiation. And in Illinois yesterday, a reactor had to put off a bunch of radioactive steam. They just said, no matter. We've raised the levels of what's safe. It's now good for you. Just like they wouldn't let the troops use DU up until 1990, 91, and now they let them use it, and it's killing them.
That's right. That's what they do. And sadly, we're still at the point where, like I said, people see the FDA stamp of approval, they think it's safe, and sadly as well is a lot of children. Aspartame is in most of the kid beverages.
Pedialyte for babies?
Yes.
How loving.
Flintstone vitamins, So it's a multivitamin vitamin for children, and kids are taking it every single day.
Well, we wonder why the United States has the highest rate of cancer, obesity, diabetes. I mean, I go to restaurants and places, and I got to be honest. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's very sad. The children look like they've been fed toxic waste. I mean, well-to-do families, you name it. These don't look like kids when I was growing up. And I keep my children away from almost all this stuff, and it is just god-awful to see what zombies they've turned them into.
Yeah.
But they're going to be slaves to the medical tyranny now. I've been interrupting. Any other points that you found in your investigation before we go to this piece?
Well, another thing I was thinking about, the FDA has studies, obviously, that dismiss the dangers of aspartame, but it's ironic because they also have studies that contradict their own studies. They've got studies that say it's good, and then they've got studies that say it's bad. And of course, they're trying to suppress those, but they have come out. So those studies are available. In fact, Kurt Nimmo did an article, and he lists the number of aspartame side effects.
But you notice the studies that are pro are Monsanto's own studies. Take the one in, 78 when they couldn't get it approved. A bunch of the monkeys died or were brain damaged, the babies they gave it to. But they just took those out of the study and said, see, it's safe for the other part.
Oh, the vast majority of the studies that say it's healthy were conducted by the aspartame industry, no doubt.
Well, it's amazing that, it should say not aspartame, but genetically engineered bacteria feces. That's what it is.
That's right.
People look up aspartame manufacturing process. Well, this is not a secret. It's made in a chemical lab. It's made in a biotech weapons lab. That's what the Pentagon was developing when it happened. They said, oh, this is a great neurotoxin. People love this. I mean, how many drugs are actually poisons? It's addictive. It makes you sick. Here's that report by Darren McBreen.
A popular diet and sugar-free foods and beverages contain an artificial sweetener that researchers say may cause cancer. The ingredient is aspartame, and it is by far the most dangerous substance on the market that is added to our foods. Aspartame is an artificial sweetener found in thousands of products worldwide, and chances are you are consuming it. It's added to sugar-free gum, juice beverages, tabletop sweeteners like Equal and NutraSweet. It's in cereals, soft drinks, yogurt, breath mints, multivitamins, wine coolers, and even over-the-counter medicines. The toxic long-term effects of aspartame are often dismissed as a hoax by the sweetener industry. However, numerous independent controlled studies using human subjects have concluded that aspartame is deadly. Now, there's a number of studies that claim that aspartame is completely safe to consume, but the vast majority of those studies were conducted by, well, you guessed it, the aspartame industry. In fact, groups like Monsanto, J.D. Searle, and ILSI concluded that aspartame posed no health risk. But that's about as credible as Marlboro, Camel, and Winston, dismissing the link between cigarette smoking and cancer.
Tastes good like a cigarette should.
Have you heard of aspartame?
Yes, I've heard of it before.
Have you heard good things or bad things?
I hear mostly bad things about it.
What kind of bad things?
Just like it's an artificial sweetener and it's bad for your health and you should try to stay away.
I've heard it's an artificial sweetener and I'm guilty of drinking beverages sweetened with it. However, it degenerates and it does harmful things.
What do you think about aspartame?
I don't like it. It gives me headaches.
They did studies on rats. It supposedly causes cancer.
Even Fox News recently reported in 2005 that artificial sweeteners had been linked to a wide range of cancers after studying involving rats. So these rats actually had tumors the size of golf balls. So does that concern you when you hear stuff like that?
Greatly, yes. And the FDA is supposed to be protecting us from things like cancer, not giving it to us and telling us it's safe.
You cannot go to the grocery store now and buy any type of even regular sugar gum that hasn't had aspartame added to it. In the 1970s, Searle tried to get it approved and they couldn't. It took them 3 separate times because in their own studies with monkeys, large portions of them that were fed it died and contracted cancer. Now we have mainstream news articles, and the EU has done a major study finding lower birth weights, early birth, and yes, miscarriages from women that drink aspartame-laden soft drinks like Coke Zero.
Do you think that aspartame should be on the market today?
No.
Why not?
Because it hasn't been demonstrated to be safe.
The FDA looked at the research and in 1975 put aspartame's approval on hold. It set up an independent panel of doctors to study aspartame. In 1980, that public board of inquiry unanimously ruled aspartame should not go on the market. Edith was drinking a cup of low-calorie hot chocolate that night. Aspartame made it sweet. And Johnson says aspartame made her sick.
All of a sudden, I couldn't see. My eyes went out of focus, and it was like my vision became quite blurred.
And you think it's because of aspartame?
I think it's very deliberately because of aspartame, yes.
It was terrifying. Kate Randall thought she was going crazy.
I started popping in my hands and twitching in my feet, my legs, my knees, my upper legs, and shoulders and arms and everywhere.
Many of these individuals who have been aspartame reactors have tested themselves 5, 10, 20 times. Every time getting the same response, and then they realized that this was a legitimate cause and effect relationship.
What is aspartame? It is the fecal matter of the E. coli bacteria. They took it and genetically engineered it. They can feed it toxic waste, and then it defecates aspartame. And it has so many bad health effects, it's just unspeakable.
How do you think a product like that was managed to be approved by the FDA?
Oh, I think there's loopholes to everything.
I say shut the FDA down, shut down any government agency that's not doing its job.
Would you think that possibly the FDA is corrupt?
I'm going to go ahead and say no. I trust the FDA with my health.
Do you think there's a chance the FDA could be corrupt?
About as big a chance as any other part of our government.
Now, the FDA approval of aspartame was highly contested and subject to multiple congressional hearings and scientific criticism. In fact, aspartame was continuously rejected by the FDA for over 15 years until it was finally approved in 1981. Since that time, the FDA has published a list of 92 symptoms of aspartame poisoning, which includes headaches, vision loss, including blindness, seizures, neurological problems, cardiovascular problems, and death. The FDA even admits adverse reactions to aspartame comprise about 80% of consumer complaints it receives each year. Yet the dangerous substance remains on the market and is consumed by millions of people every single day. I'm Darren McBreen for Infowars Nightly News.
And again, we are back with reporter Darren McBreen. Darren, I like the fact in there that you show the Flintstones promoting cigarettes and telling everybody it's good for them. You know, kids, this is really going to be healthy for you back in the 50s. And then now, aspartame for kids. This is good again. I mean, they knew 100 years ago cigarettes were tied to cancer. And until recently, it was a conspiracy theory to say so, but their own documents show that they know full well. And it's the same thing with aspartame. I mean, it's admitted that it breaks down into wood alcohol, formaldehyde in the body. Everybody knows bathtub gin causes blindness. I've talked to friends and family and medical doctors. When they tell people to go off of this incrementally, they have serious withdrawal symptoms. I mean, this is a drug. There's a reason they got this approved. This is made at big pharma laboratories.
Well, it's addicting, you know. And at first it starts, you know, not many people will get a headache and say, damn it, I shouldn't have drank that Diet Coke a half hour ago. They don't realize that it was a Diet Coke that gave them a headache. And it's also addicting. How many people do you know that are addicted? They have to have a diet soda every day.
Oh, they carry it around with them like they're like it's alcohol or something.
Yeah.
Shifting gears, another area, and I'd always heard this. I went and looked it up. The Japanese military in World War I, when they were on the side of the West at that time, they were on the Axis side in World War II, they were basically feeding rotten canned food to their troops. And they wouldn't eat it because the Japanese, you know, are into like cuisine, like the French. Even their tough troops wouldn't. They developed this artificial salt, MSG, that'll make a dead rat taste like pumpkin pie, and they put it on there. Well, Colonel Sanders, by the 20s, had discovered that, and by the 30s, rolled it out. And that's why people love that chicken so much. But it turns out it's an excitotoxin and causes brain damage and is addicting and it makes you eat more. So that's why they put it in. So basically, we have all these 40 and 60 and 80 and 100-year-old technologies that are really drugs that are grandfathered in to be able to be put in our food.
That's right. And aspartame is an excitotoxin, like you said. And you know what I thought was interesting when I did the research for this piece, we were talking about the tobacco industry and the comparison between tobacco and aspartame. What was the vintage commercials? You know, we're talking about the Flintstones ad, but not only did they make smoking look cool, but they almost made it look healthy. You know,
oh, no, there's ads where they say, ask your doctor, having a sore throat, smoke a Camel, or walk a mile, or feeling down.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I noticed during the early 80s, same thing with aspartame company. They made it look healthy, the way the propaganda machine worked. It looked like, if you're...
You showed ads from 81 when it got approved, and it was flashbacks. I remember from Coke Is It, and all of those ads. Why out of the gates, if they didn't think that there was a health problem, there wasn't even a controversy yet, would it all be about being healthy? Everybody's trying it, and it's good.
Well, and that's why I think it's important that we look at the, we're about to see a side-by-side comparison where I show the tobacco industry, then it followed by the aspartame industry. Clearly, cigarettes are bad for you, and then you could see that the aspartame industry was trying to do the same thing here.
You're being a conspiracy theorist. The media told me cigarettes are good for me.
Yeah.
So aspartame must be good, too. I mean, they say mercury's good in the vaccines. I've got newscasts saying that.
I've heard it. Yeah.
They say it's good for children's brains.
Yeah, yeah.
And there it is, Flintstones and all the other gums. Let's go to that side-by-side comparison.
Let's take a Winston break. That's it. Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend.
The Flintstones has been brought to you by Winston, America's best-selling, best-tasting filter cigarette.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
Last year, over 2 million people got something of a surprise in the mail. Their first taste of NutraSweet. And of all things, a gumball. What's NutraSweet? It's a sweetening ingredient that isn't fattening. A sweetening ingredient that isn't artificial like saccharin. Isn't bad for your teeth. Tastes just like sugar. And sounds just too good to be true.
Banana plants don't make NutraSweet. Neither do cows. But they might as well. If you've had bananas and milk, you've eaten what's in NutraSweet. It's made from things like those found naturally in good things to eat, like 2 building blocks of protein. Nature doesn't make NutraSweet, but NutraSweet couldn't be made without it. NutraSweet brand sweetener. Just look for the swirl.
Devastating information. Darren is not just a great reporter. He's a great video editor and researcher. Ladies and gentlemen, now, imagine if they would have said in 1965, the Pentagon Bioweapons Division trying to create a bioweapon, developed the first genetically created super clone E. coli bacteria. It was able to eat through different toxic substances fed to it in giant black vats of deadly poison. The excrement of these bacteria is then fed to your children. No, it's like, oh, it's not exactly natural, but it comes from natural things. I mean, you cannot make up the craziness of this. And it's like, doctors are enjoying it. It's so healthy. Oh, and it shows the beautiful woman smoking it. You know, my grandma, who basically ended up dying from lung cancer, she looked like that. She was more beautiful than that woman. And I was there when they cut her lung out, and then she lived another decade of excruciating pain and nerve problems and heart problems. And her face got paralyzed. Oh, but I'm a conspiracy theorist. The cigarettes were good because the majority of doctors say it's the one to go with. And now your doctor says aspartame. Your doctor says fluoride. No, your doctor doesn't. The American Medical Association, a bunch of eugenicists at the top who know what they're doing and who are poisoning you and suppressing real treatments and cures are the ones saying that. The majority of doctors have now woken up that sodium fluoride's bad and are testifying. That's why they're pulling it out in all these cities. So the feds are coming in financing legislative movements in states to try to forcefully medicate you. And as bad as aspartame is, it ain't got nothing on fluoride. Oh, man, I am so angry. Darren, I mean, that is incredible. I hope people get this report and get it out to 10 million people. It's up to the viewers out there, though, the prisonplanet.tv folks, to get it, upload it to YouTube, get it out to everybody, because that is devastating.
Well, and the message here is not only is aspartame bad, but the FDA as well. They are corrupt. They've been compromised.
Well, it's all full of Monsanto people. And
that's right.
I mean, Monsanto brought you this.
That's right. So don't trust them.
Well, I mean, look, it shows a little kid. It's the same thing in bananas and milk. Not exactly natural, but it's good. We're not going to tell you where it came from.
Some of the ads I didn't show, just, obviously didn't have time to do everything, but, it was the responsible mother, who's got kids and she's making breakfast. She doesn't want to give them all that sugar and sugar in the coffee, so you got to have that artificial sweetener.
I see these poor self-propelled stomachs who are like 500 pounds or who get their arms and legs cut off at bus stops from diabetes, and I go over to them and they go, I don't know, I don't eat very much, but I got my aspartame. It actually makes you hungrier. I've had medical doctors on. It fries your pancreas. It's one of the main reasons that that diabetes is off the chart.
And it stimulates your brain too. It messes with your head.
Well, next you're going to tell me cigarettes affect the brain. I mean, come on. What about all the chemicals they got caught adding to cigarettes?
Yeah. I mean, this is stuff that we know now, but back in the day, I mean, people, wasn't let out. So now that's what we're trying to do now is inform everyone.
Darren, we're going to obviously have this here for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, but I want you to, as soon as this show's aired, get this whole report together we've done here, your man on the street and the later report together, and we've got to get this up to YouTube and just pray that people get it out to millions. I mean, this is saving people's lives.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into personal stuff, but I had family having health problems who got off aspartame, and they're like, this is magic. First, it was hell to get off of it for a month, and then they lose weight, they get healthy. I mean, to know these sinister bastards are doing this to people, it's a life and death situation. It's up to you to get this out. Great job, Darren.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the team. And by the way, soon we're going to announce a nationwide contest to find more reporters. We may hire one or two, definitely one, and from all over the country. And we're getting our new video editors, building up our crew here. Thanks to you supporting us, the subscribers at PrisonPlanet.tv. And today is the last day into tomorrow to get 44% off a yearly membership. You can always get a 15-day free trial at PrisonPlanet.tv. We're fighting the construction of this prison planet. Okay, that's it for this extensive edition of Infowars Nightly News. God bless you all. We'll see you back, Lord willing, tomorrow. I want to close out, though, with a quote by Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman. And he said, and this is one of the books he wrote, you can look it up, the Federal Reserve definitely caused the Great Depression by contracting the amount of currency in circulation by 1/3 from 29 to 33, Milton Friedman. So that's why they've now decided, people that basically follow his school, that, well, not death by having the currency turned off, but death by having it turned up, QE3 hyperinflated, which is just as bad in the long run. But again, we'll cover that more tomorrow night. I'm Alex Jones signing off.